Charlie Brown, Snoopy, and friends joined the Seattle Symphony for Peanuts' 75th anniversary on March 27th, 28th, and 29th at Benaroya Hall. Peanuts comes to the symphonic stage with a live host, actors in costume, imagery from the show, and Vince Guaraldi's music. Plus, use promo code SNOOPY, SNOOPY, to unlock 15% off tickets. Get tickets now at seattlesymphony.org. This is CityCast Seattle. I'm Jane C. Hu, and here's what Seattle's talking about. Hey, you know what my favorite thing is? When Lime scooters are randomly beeping on the sidewalk because they've been knocked over. And now we might get to hear them chirp even more. We'll tell you why in today's episode. We're also talking about the history and future of the rap scene with music journalist and historian Martin Douglas. Welcome, Martin.
Hello, hello. Much to the chagrin of my haters, I am back. Always happy to be here.
Martin is back. Also joining us is contributor Brett Hamill, writer, comedian, and the cartoonist behind the weekly series Doom Loop. Welcome, Brett.
I would also like to send a shout out to my haters as well.
All right. Well, before we get into the rest of today's episode, on Thursday afternoon, Mayor Katie Wilson held a press conference announcing what she is doing about our city's surveillance cameras. This has been a hot button issue since she took office, one that activists have been really trying to push her on since the beginning. This week, activists who worked on her campaign were trying to pressure her to turn off all of the cameras. And on the other side of things, families of children who were killed by gun violence have talked about the necessity of keeping those cameras on to try and solve crimes. So here's the rundown from Wilson's announcement. She did say that all automatic license plate readers will be turned off. So that's around 400 cameras on police cars and apparently 6 parking enforcement cars. But the existing cameras that have been installed in parts of downtown, as well as the International District and on Aurora, are going to stay on until the city completes an audit evaluating how secure the data storage of all that footage really is. There was a planned expansion of the existing CCTV cameras in town that was put in place by Bruce Harrell's administration. That has been paused. And the exception, though, is that there will be 26 cameras installed in the Stadium District ahead of the World Cup. Those will not be turned on, Wilson says, unless there is a credible threat posed by all of these folks coming into the World Cup. Is this what you all expected?
I mean, in a way, yes. Unfortunately, Katie Wilson is expected to go up against the entire arrayed police carceral surveillance system within her first 3 months of office. She's already been getting slammed by the press for, crime-ish things in the legacy media. She's going to have to confront this in some way, but no mayor would want to confront this in their first 3 months in office. But here we go. These cameras were rammed through city council by a conservative supermajority who have either now been booted from office or soon going to lose re-election. So really the people that should be cleaning up this mess is the city council who foisted these cameras on us. But it doesn't look like that's likely to happen. So it's up to Mayor Wilson to sort of unilaterally use her powers as mayor to block the use of these surveillance cameras. She clearly is unwilling to do so, and it wasn't necessarily something she ran heavily on.
She did say that she did not want the expansion to go through during her campaign.
Yes, she didn't run as like a wild-eyed abolitionist or anything. She pretty much just, let's go along to get along with the cops and let's win this election. So what she's left doing is giving us a soup sandwich in which everyone can see what they want to see about the news. Folks like the Downtown Seattle Association say, great, at least she's not shutting off the cameras. You've seen people who are opposed to the cameras like Stop Surveillance City saying this is weak sauce. So ultimately, no one's happy. I think that's probably the best she could hope for.
I think an issue of a mayor of a major city in general comes with making decisions that aren't popular, and you're always caught in between two disparate states of opinion. And what do you do when you have to compromise? On one hand, I definitely see the appeal of people saying like, hey, we don't need all this surveillance. I go to my neighborhood QFC and there's a gate to get in. There's cameras everywhere. There's cameras on top of self-checkout. Even going to the grocery store, there's armed security. Like, it feels like going into a jail. And so I do agree with the idea of like, hey, let's put measures in place to make sure that we're not over surveilling people. And I also understand the point of view of people who have been, families who have been impacted by gun violence and being like, these things help solve murders. It's a hard truth, but it's still a truth. I don't want to be like, the both sides guy, but I definitely see the validity in parts of arguments on both sides.
When Wilson came out to begin her announcement yesterday, she kicked it off by saying, sometimes as a mayor, you make decisions that no one's going to like, and this might be one of them. The minute that came out of her mouth, I was like, yeah, I think I know what she's going to say. It's probably going to be a middle of the road option that doesn't appease either side here of the issue. And I mean, I think we've seen this approach from her before, right? With the Ballard sweeps as well. Like, she had paused any kind of action on those sweeps so that her team could take more time to carefully consider and think about it. And she ended up going ahead with it anyway. But I think something about taking a beat and trying to apply data to it seems to be something she really wants to be transparent with the public about as her approach.
It seems that the data she's talking about is whether this video can be accessed by other, like, for example, federal agencies, and whether there's security within, the data,
yes,
within the raw footage. What has not been really discussed is whether or not these cameras actually help prosecute crimes. And there are numerous studies that say that they do not. They actually do not. So we're all arguing over whether Trump is going to use this data, or the governor of Texas, to, for example, prosecute people coming here to get an abortion. What we're not talking about is whether this shit actually does anything worthwhile.
Yeah.
I think that's incredibly hard to quantify for what it's worth, right? Like,
show us the cases that have been closed based on surveillance camera data. Show me the stack of papers, or is it just going to be 2 or 3 in a bunch of cases of mistaken identity, which is what is my inclination to believe.
Or is it going to be like a Kash Patel situation where like he's actively trying to buy location data for the FBI, which is another scary thing having to do with this issue of surveillance.
Yeah, I mean, I think even once we have that data, I'm sure someone could pull the numbers on that, right? Like, I'm sure it would take a lot of legwork to try and actually figure out, but that data exists. And even then, I think that fundamentally what you have to do moving forward with that data is still apply some amount of your own values and what you see as the trade-off between surveillance and perceived safety. Like, one thing that Wilson said in her announcement that I thought was interesting, and I haven't actually seen many other people include it in their reporting on this, is that she said she wants to take a data-centered approach, and that she felt like the feelings mattered here too, because people's feelings about their safety play into your quality of life. And I was like, yeah, that's fundamentally impossible to quantify. That's just a qualitative measure. And I don't know exactly how that's all going to play into whatever her ultimate decision here is.
The idea of safety in general, I think, is very, very, very subjective. For instance, I was talking to my fiance. We were just kind of chatting about the time we went to Memphis for my 40th birthday, and how often you hear that Memphis is so dangerous, but the two of us, we're walking around downtown like pretty far away from Beale Street, and like nothing's happening. They're just people on the street walking to and fro. And I think that, you know, it's always in the eye of the beholder, whether or not a city is safe.
And your identity plays so much into it. I went to Brett's show last weekend to see Burl Dirkman, and I was there with my partner and a couple of our friends, and we ended up walking on some back streets back to where we had parked. And I was thinking to myself, I would not be walking these back streets by myself. I would stay on the arterials. But because I'm here with a larger group, like I feel safer to take up that space and know that we have a little bit more of a presence. So yeah, I mean, it's hard to tell people that they're right or wrong about feeling safe or not. And I do think that those are the voices that we're hearing from both sides here. There are folks who feel safer with the cameras on, and there are a lot of folks who feel less safe with the cameras on. And it's really difficult to tell either of those groups that they're right or wrong if it's based on feelings.
But let's look at the bigger picture. We spend so much more on policing now than we did 10, 20, 30 years ago. We spend twice as much on the Seattle Police Department, and they close half as many crimes as they did 20 years ago. You can look it up and check me on those facts. They close significantly fewer crimes per officer with double the funding. Now we're just going to throw more tech at it. We're just going to have some guy at the real-time crime center staring at a bunch of screens. And where's the real policing work happening? The big picture is Katie Wilson is coming up against the sort of militarized police industrial complex. And there are those out there, abolitionists and otherwise, and reformers who believe that big city policing is a sort of protection racket in which the budget numbers always go up. The legacy media is always marching in lockstep to portray crime as this horrible thing, even when it statistically can be proven to be better than it was before. And here we are again, looking for more boondoggles to throw our money at. You know, just like, let's throw some more money at policing, but where it actually goes and whether it's actually effective is never studied. We can look at whether the Trump administration can access this video. You know, spoiler, they can, they will, they probably are already, but is it actually solving any crimes?
Yes, maybe. But also, I think you have a point, Brett. The problem is much bigger and not going to be solved primarily with these cameras. But these cameras are still taking front and center view right now among a lot of groups in Seattle.
And we can take some solace knowing that at least Katie Wilson will slow things down. So at least like there's some signs of progress there. At least now we're like being a little more circumspect about what we're throwing our money and our civil liberties away at.
Let's take a break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about chirping on these lovely Lime scooters that we see around town. When I first moved to Seattle, I started going to events at Town Hall Seattle as a way of getting to know the city. I've seen events and panel discussions from my favorite authors and thinkers, and I even went to a concert there. Town Hall is a nonprofit with a mission to amplify ideas, foster civil discourse, and connect people through events. They're a community hub. Nearly every night of the week, you'll find a calendar of events spanning civics, science, and arts and culture. And they're housed in a vibrant historic building. The Great Hall is a gorgeous space with stained glass windows, and the Wyncote Northwest Forum got a stunning makeover a few years ago. Coming up on March 29th, ecologist Suzanne Simard and journalist Linda Mapes will discuss the elaborate cycles of forest ecosystems. Get your tickets at townhallseattle.org. Like most Town Hall events, these tickets are being offered on a sliding scale with free tickets for people under 22. Like many Seattleites, I live in an old house, and it can get drafty with these old windows. Lately, my heat has been running nearly constantly. If that's also the case for you, it could be because your window insulation has failed. Window Nation can check that out for you and get you new, custom-built, high-quality windows. Their installation crews finish the job in 1 day or less, and they offer a lifetime warranty on all of their windows so you can relax knowing your home is protected far into the future. They've installed 3 million windows across the country, and they've got over 45,000 five-star reviews. Right now, the more you buy, the more savings you could enjoy. you can get up to 50% off on all window styles. You can also get them with 0 down, 0 monthly payments, and 0 interest for 2 years. You can schedule a fast, free estimate now at windownation.com. Again, that's windownation.com. So AI is coming to Lime scooters. According to GeekWire, around half of Seattle's scooters are going to have something called Lime Vision by June 1st, ahead of the World Cup. Scooters are going to have a camera trained on an AI model to detect whether a rider is in the road, a bike lane, or on the sidewalk, and it's going to chirp when it detects so-called bad behavior. Okay, so what is scooter bad behavior, do you think? I don't feel like it was terribly well defined in any of the pieces I've seen about this so far.
Just running up on people, getting way too close on the sidewalks. I see a bunch of teenagers like out in the road. And of course, I just think that looks like fun. But it is dangerous, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Brett there. Like I think of all of the scooter riders that I see in the street. I'm a driver, so I've never ridden these scooters. I don't know the logistics, the speed, or anything like that. But like, you see people in the road sometimes, and yeah, it does look fun. But also, like, I know how people drive in this city, so I can see the danger in that too.
Yeah, I feel like being predictable is a great rule of thumb for using any kind of mobility, like whether you're driving or riding a bike or walking. And I feel like scooters are always like the chaos agents that I see around town. I think both of you hit on, like classic kind of scooter behavior. Like, so apparently scooters are not supposed to be on the sidewalk, and it will chirp at you if you're on the sidewalk. Martin, you said you aren't sure how fast they go. I think they can get up to like 15 or 20, but I just recently learned that there is some amount of geofencing happening in the city. So like along the waterfront, instead of going like 15, they can only go like 8. So I think going slower in those really crowded areas is probably overall safer for everyone involved. But yes, so if you are riding on the sidewalk or otherwise, I guess, behaving badly, I'm not really sure what this AI model is detecting in these situations, but you will get chirped at as a person on the scooter. Do you think that chirping is really going to be a deterrent for, like, I don't know, a teen who is just like whipping around downtown having a great time?
Probably not. When I have headphones or earbuds on, my music is cranked up loud.
Forgot about that earbuds. Yes, that's a great point.
I can't hear anything. I'm even in the house sometimes and I can't hear what's going on. So if I were a scooter rider, I probably wouldn't be deterred by the constant beeping because I wouldn't be able to hear it.
It's probably validating if you're really raising hell. It's like, let's see how long I can keep this chirping.
100%. I feel like as a teenager, I'd be like, what do I do to get this thing to chirp? Would probably
They're actually gamifying bad behavior, I think.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. As an adult, though, I think that chirping would be, I'm so annoyed by it when I just hear it on the sidewalk. Like, I don't know if you all have heard this, but when Lime bikes or Lime scooters have been like pushed over, or if they're being moved, they'll make like loud noises to try and deter people from doing that.
No, I've never heard that.
Okay. Well, now it's like this double whammy where it's like, if you're already not supposed to be riding on the sidewalk. And if you're riding on the sidewalk, now you're going to be annoying the shit out of everyone with the beeping. So that'll be really fun for all of us pedestrians. So it seems like lots of changes are happening ahead of the World Cup, including some plans from the Seattle Department of Transportation to put in more parking corrals for bikes and scooters in the corridor of downtown where we're going to expect a lot of tourists. You all might have already heard, like, the Pioneer Square Preservation Board has pushed back against that. And this week, a group of organizations, including Lime, also including Cascade Bike Club, Seattle Streets Alliance, which is formerly Neighborhood Greenways, sent a letter to Pioneer Square Preservation Board asking them to support SDOT's plan. It made sense to me that groups supporting micromobility might band together, but somehow I was a little bit surprised to see Lime in the mix there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's interesting, especially when it comes to all of the measures that are being put in place for the World Cup and hearing about all of the preparations. And it's a weirdly hot button issue. Like, I think that there should be these measures in place for people that use scooters and ride bikes and aren't driving everywhere or even using public transportation. Like, I think everybody should be able to get to where these events are happening rather than, worry about, am I going to have to lock my bike on one of the few newspaper stands that are left in the city or whatever.
Yeah, it's always me trying to look for bike parking. I know that the Pioneer Square Preservation Board has pushed back because partly they are concerned about the lack of parking. I know that a few businesses have said that having these spots taken away, and to be clear, I think generally speaking, it's like one spot per block because you're basically taking a spot that I don't think you're even technically supposed to be parking in because you're supposed to be parking 30 feet from the curb. But, it's Seattle. I don't feel like people always follow that. But they're essentially just taking that little corner area and turning it into a place where you're supposed to end your Lime bike or Lime scooter shares. And in some places might put in bike racks. And they also have little plastic separators to show you that this is an area specifically for that. And the Pioneer Square Preservation Board has been, generally speaking, over the years, very concerned about whether things fit the aesthetics of the historic area. And they're like, those plastic dividers are ugly, which I don't disagree with them about. However,
Preservation Board, do something useful and worthwhile for once challenge. All the things they block. I mean, hey, there used to be bathrooms under the pergola. Let's bring those back then. These groups are so revanchist. And what are you preserving? Why do people come down here? It's really not to stare at the pergola or whatever. It's to go to nightclubs, social events, walk through on the way to sporting events and such. I mean, to me, the way to keep your history vital is to actually do things that entice the public to come there and make it easier for them to come there. And we see the same thing with the Pike Place Market Foundation. Guys, you have become the villains of downtown Seattle. When you find yourself pitted against Lime bikes, when you find yourself even pitted against the Downtown Seattle Association, in doing everything you can to block any forward momentum, it's just getting ridiculous. What we're learning is that these groups have far too much power to dictate the future uses of the Metro core. They've got to be weakened and shut down and silenced.
And let's be really, really real about this. Seattle is not the most aesthetically beautiful city. What are we doing here?
We have natural beauty, but we also have some really kind of already dated 2010s architecture.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say Seattle is not even really that old, which it's not either. So, and parts of the really old stuff are underground now. So what are we preserving when we do this? I mean, we have to figure out how to make peace. But I think that a lot of sort of NIMBY types have latched onto these preservation groups as a way to just halt forward progress. They're kind of the cutout for all this urge to never let the city change in any way so that it can be just like it was when my grandma took me to the tree lighting ceremony in the 70s.
Well, they're going to really love all of those 1890s e-scooters that chirp at you if you're riding on that, historic cobblestone.
They should have those, the bikes with the big wheel in the back. They should make some
you need a penny farthing. That's what
penny farthing.
Oh my God. Actually, that would go hard. I would definitely be renting with Live if they had an penny farthing. All right, let's take a break. And when we come back, I want to hear about Martin's latest piece about the Pacific Northwest rap scene.
Hi, CityCast listeners. This is David Plotz. I'm the CEO of CityCast, but I also have another job. I'm one of the hosts of the Political Gabfest, Slate's politics podcast. Every week, I get on mic with my co-hosts Emily Bazelon and John Dickerson, and we talk about politics and a lot more about other things that we care about. The Gabfest has been going for more than 20 years because the three of us love talking to each other, and we have an amazing community of listeners. If you like the open-hearted, curious way CityCast approaches cities, I think you'll like the Political Gabfest too. Stream it on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast.
If you're enjoying the podcast, be sure to follow us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen so you never miss an episode. Also, leave us a little review. It's really helpful. And tell your friends about us. You can also get more local news and events delivered right to your inbox by subscribing to our newsletter. Just go to seattle.citycast.fm. And you can find us on Instagram, Blue Sky, and TikTok at CityCast Seattle. And you can watch full episodes of this show on YouTube. So the Pacific Northwest is known nationwide as the birthplace of grunge, but it's also incubated a unique rap scene. Martin, you recently published a piece on Bandcamp Daily about what you call a, quote, flourishing, overlooked underground rap scene. Who are the key artists who have built and elevated the scene, and what have their contributions been like?
To get behind the scenes a little, I wanted to do a very specific sector of the Northwest rap scene and the artists that come out of Seattle that are participating in the scene. And the city's rap scene was already flourishing. There's such an in-depth history of all of the rap that has come out of Seattle, dating back to its very beginnings. And I don't want to get into that too much because there are several history books. I highly recommend the book Emerald Street for anybody looking to dive deep into the history of Seattle rap. But when it comes to the thing that the Los Angeles-based rapper Open Mike Eagle coined as art rap, I think for the Northwest, it definitely started with Shabazz Palaces and the Black Constellation Collective, which includes Dissatisfaction, which, sadly broke up, actually a decade ago. Also Porter Ray, OC Notes, Just Moni. I mean, the list goes on and on and on.
What sets our scene apart from, I don't know, some of the better known rap scenes in the US?
It's just like how the rock scene started in Seattle, in that it's very DIY, it's very independently minded, the artist having control over the work and not necessarily being worried about perceptions of how their music is taken or the mainstream aspect of it. It's about, I have a vision, I'm going to implement it, and I'm going to put it out there regardless of whether or not a label signs me. I was just looking over this list of artists that I spotlighted, and the only artist that has ever been signed to a big label is Stassi Boss, and that's when she was with Dissatisfaction. Everyone else has put their music out on small boutique rap labels, or in the case of artists like AJ Suede and Old Grape God, they have put out the work themselves.
Yeah, I feel like that DIY aspect is very Pacific Northwest. Brett, I'm curious to hear from you, like, which rap artists have you seen come up in your time here? Or like, who would you say are the most recognizable Pacific Northwest rap icons?
I mean, it's got to be Shabazz Palaces and Ishmael Butler. OC Notes, also great. Dissatisfaction, saw them live shortly before they broke up, and it was amazing. I think you got to shout out Eric Blood as well, who produced a lot of the Shabazz stuff, who comes from his own sort of funky hybrid background and is still making great music.
For folks who are less plugged in, I think that the two artists that people are most likely to have heard of who are associated with the Pacific Northwest and our region specifically, who might not be part of this more underground DIY scene, are Sir Mix-a-Lot and Macklemore. And I don't know, I just have been thinking about, like, what does it mean that Macklemore is the most recognizable kind of mainstream rap artist from our region in recent years?
In the intro of this piece that I wrote for Bandcamp Daily, I kind of get into the history of rap in general, rather than, just this art rap subculture. And those are the two artists that I made sure to point out. Sir Mix-a-Lot. I think, all due respect to the founders of Seattle rap, Posse on Broadway is the first Seattle rap anthem. And it still bangs. We're talking.
It goes hard.
Almost 40 years later, it bangs. I still listen to that song regularly. Like, it's, oh my gosh, it's one of the great rap songs ever, regardless of region or location. And in terms of Macklemore, I wasn't trying to hate on Macklemore. I was trying to center what his popularity is. And I think the reason why Macklemore is currently the most visible mainstream rap artist from Seattle is because he, in a way, kind of perpetuates the stereotypes of what people think Seattleites are: leftist, earnest, and white. Like, I mean, I remember maybe like a decade, 15 years ago, like going other places and people being like, are there any Black people in Seattle? And we have like a very, very, very rich history of Black Seattle culture. And that was one of the things that I wanted to articulate in this piece. And so, like, in doing that, I don't want to say I took a swipe at Macklemore, but like, I was very honest about what Macklemore's appeal is to the national audience.
Yeah, that's a phrase that I feel like is a real Rorschach test for people, that you can interpret that in either way. If you already don't like him or whether you do like him, I think that to me reads as a very just straightforward description of what he embodies.
Yeah.
You mentioned this in your article, but Quincy Jones, I mean, come on, one of the funkiest dudes ever to live. And he's from Seattle, and he's not claimed loudly enough here in Seattle, I will say. And obviously Jimi Hendrix as well.
Two of the greatest artists of all time.
Those guys just need to be front page. Like, let's bump Macklemore back a little respectfully and be like, have you heard of this Quincy Jones guy? He's from here. Like, come on.
All right. Speaking of putting a spotlight on people, Martin, which local rap artist should folks check out right now?
Because we are Seattle centric here at CityCast Seattle, I will definitely say AJ Suede. Suede has got the most prolific catalog out of everyone that I listed. He just put out an album in January. He's got one on deck for spring, I believe. I'd say he puts out 3, sometimes 4 projects a year, and they're only like 25 minutes. So I think that that's not a monopoly of people's time to get 3 25-minute albums a year.
That's what I want. I want like a tight, I could go walk the dog and listen to a new album kind of situation. Or like I'm on transit, and in the time that it takes to get there, I've listened to a new album.
It reminds me a lot of punk rock. Like, I think the ideal punk rock album is 25 to 30 minutes. And I think Suede has got that time, that the timing of his albums so immaculate.
Love that. All right. Well, I am going to go check that out. Martin, thank you so much for bringing your recs and your expertise on this to us today.
Thank you for having me, as always.
And Brett, thank you so much for joining us.
It was great to be here as always.
That's all for today here at CityCast Seattle. I'm your host, Jane Sihu. And listeners, we want to hear from you. Tell us about your favorite Seattle rap artist by sending an email to seattle@citycast.fm. You can also text us or leave us a voicemail on the CityCast hotline at 206-880-3931. Until next time, see ya, Seattle.